Hi everyone, my name is 𝐬𝐻𝐫𝐞𝐭, and here I'm answering interview questions for the Table Read, which is a United Kingdom creativity magazine. So the first question is, who are you and what do you do? Well, I'm 𝐬𝐻𝐫𝐿𝐿 and I'm currently a graduate student at Vanguard University, and I am currently a student teacher. I'm going to be taking my last semester this upcoming fall for advanced student teaching, after which I should get teaching credentials in mathematics. And I'm also a volunteer Royal Rangers commander for 9 years and a volunteer worship musician, a keyboardist, as well as a youth minister intern. And on the side, I'm a professional YouTuber and an influencer on Instagram. I post a lot of autism awareness and acceptance videos and explaining from a first-hand perspective what autism is. Among a lot of other content, I invite anyone to watch my channel trailer on YouTube to find out what else I post. I post a lot of plane spotting and fire buffing and a lot of other hobbies. Okay, the second question is, what is your latest book called? My latest book and my first book is Juggling the Issues, Living with Asperger's Syndrome, published by River Birch Press, and it's all about living beyond Asperger's. And in it, I talk about what Asperger's syndrome is and what it's like living with it, the pros and the cons. The other question is, what inspired you to write it? Well, that goes back to my very, very early childhood where I began to write, and I loved creative writing insofar that I actually had to be disciplined a few times. My fellow student next to me in like first or second grade had the task to confiscate my pencil if I tried to turn the page and write some more. So I always loved writing. I grew up all elementary school, middle school, high school, just writing stories and movie scripts and television scripts and such, but none of them were published. And then in 2013, when I got to Orange Coast College, I began writing some more. And I'm like, if I'm going to start writing something for like the millionth time in my life, I am going to get it published this time. So I started to write, and long story short, no pun intended, I started to write about a character who has Asperger's syndrome, who has autism, and I decided to take my stories and allegorize it through this character and explain what's in my innermost heart in this book. And so I got an agent later, and he read my work, and he suggested that I do a more autobiographical piece, something where I'm like using first person and telling more about myself instead of a fictional piece. And I cannot thank him enough, and that's how Juggling the Issues developed. What inspired me is that I have had a lifetime of discrimination by having autism spectrum disorder, by living with Asperger's syndrome. There were a lot of awkward moments, and I had a handball chucked at my face, told go away, you're not a friend, called names, and a whole bunch of things in elementary school. At the same time, I made a lot of friends, but they were more superficial, most of them, not all of them, but I didn't necessarily spend time with people outside of school, and I just devoted my time to writing or drawing or drawing animation movies or playing Game Boy Advance and such alone. But as I got older, I started to feel more and more discriminated, especially in my college days. Just discrimination in my neighborhood. And in the past 9 years, I have been discriminated. I've been laughed at, ran away from, cussed at, followed by a vehicle, nearly ran for my life one time last year, and so much more, and the weirdest looks and the strangest of stares and chuckles at me and everything. And I'm like, I'm trying to help the world. I'm trying to explain to the world who we are and that we're not aliens from outer space. We are human beings, and we deserve to live on the same planet as everybody else. It's just some things are hard for us, some things are awkward for us. Our posture, our walk could appear very strange. So it really pushed me in getting this published and wanting to articulate everything that's in my heart and in my mind and put it in a book. Question number 4 is, what was your research process like? Well, because I have Asperger's syndrome and firsthand experience, I kind of knew a lot about it, so there wasn't really much research consequently. But there were a couple of things that I was just curious about, other people's opinions, other people's views, and maybe symptoms that other people had that I didn't. And I also took observations throughout my life, and also a couple of personal interviews of fellow people with autism And from my observations and talking with other people, I've noticed a lot of similarities and that I'm not the only one, as well as some differences. So I just decided to put everything together and to the best of my ability, put it all in a book. Question number 5 is, what do you love about writing? Everything, because once you're faced with a blank sheet of paper or, well, these days a Word document file, you could go anywhere and you have total freedom and liberty. And that's why I loved my first book, which became a trilogy before this. But this is my first book and currently only book, but my trilogy is coming later, just to clarify. But when I was writing my trilogy, I could literally go anywhere, and I decided to go to Louisiana in my mind, in my imagination, in the rural 50s and 60s, and what I love about it is just the creativity that comes with it. When I was in 10th grade, and I mentioned this in my book and in a recent YouTube video, I written a 32-page essay when it was only supposed to be a few pages. Why? Because it was creative writing. I mean, once I get started, I could create the characters, I could create the scene, and I could go into a lot of detail, just articulating every detail of the scene and what the ambience was like if there were trees or if there were certain plants or anything else. And that's what I love about creative writing. I also like symbolism and archetypes and putting in hidden codes sometimes. Not in this book, but in my trilogy, I do have some codes that I plan to put in there. And sometimes I like plot twists and just turning it around and just more creative writing and more creative avenues to go down. Question 6 is, what is one piece of advice you would give to anybody else who wants to write a book? This is my advice: to get a notebook and take notes as you write so that you could keep track of the characters, the storyline, maybe who said what, or locations. You could also write down ideas that you want to write about later on and just jot them down. When I was writing my trilogy, I had note paper everywhere, including in my pocket in case I got an idea out in the neighborhood or at school or anywhere else. In fact, I even had to tape a piece of paper next to my bed at night with a pencil and a pen, and a couple of times I filled out sheets because I kept on getting ideas in the middle of the night. But I don't assume everybody is like that. But anyway, another piece of advice is to just have fun with it. This is your project, and just sometimes allow yourself to get lost in the creativity of your characters, of the scene, the setting. And once you get everything together, then give it a few days and don't look at it, and then relook at it and just read it over for flow. And once you think that you're done, then pursue the next step, whether it's self-publishing or royalty publishing. The 7th and final question is, where can we buy your book? You could buy it on Amazon, or you could also buy it at 𝐼𝐻𝐼𝐺.com or Walmart. It could be ordered at any bookstore, and it's available in both print and Kindle. Now, if you go to Amazon, make sure that says the 2020 version by River Birch Press. That's my current publisher that I had to be republished with, and it's a complicated story. But if the price says like $40 something, that's the 2019 version. I would click Kindle, and then if you want the print version, then re-click print, and it should be $17. Kindle is $10. So if you buy it, I hope that you enjoy it, and I hope it's really insightful for you. So thank you very much for listening, and especially the Table Read magazine, and for all that they're doing and asking me to join in on this interview. Have a wonderful day.